Coming from a family who served in the army, James Blunt was far from encouraged to write and play music. From a young age, he heard his father describe all styles of song as unnecessary noise, but that didn't stop him. By the age of 14, he picked up the guitar, hoping it would lead to a more interesting life. But somehow, James found himself studying two subjects at uni that were less than inspiring. He spent most of his time asleep on the classroom floor during his aerospace manufacturing and sociology lectures. Life did take an interesting turn for James after he was transferred from the classroom floor to the army.
Through university, the army paid for my tuition fees and helped with general funding. So yeah, the payback is you either serve 4 years or you give them the money back at the end. But as any decent student, I'd spent all any spare money I had. So I was consigned to 4 years. Hi, I'm Lieutenant James Blunt, and this is the first instalment of my video diary. I was in a reconnaissance regiment, and so all the things that reconnaissance entails. Today, we deploy to the Balkans. We don't know how long for, and we don't know what our job is yet. But I'm going to get as much of it on camera as I possibly can. This is me, packed for war.
Days where Blunt struggled to think of ways to escape the war were also spent strolling through Serbian villages singing Lennon's classic Give Peace a Chance. The final track on his debut album is written about his time spent serving in the army.
Having come from a protected background and living in a very safe country, to then go out and see people, and live in the environment where on a day-to-day basis you're focusing on just staying alive, and making sure the guys you're working with are staying alive and the people who you're trying to protect stay alive, is a real opportunity to live like that, and to open one's eyes.
He has been here, and I see no bravery.
Just the one song on the album is written out in Kosovo, and it's it's a pretty destitute song, which doesn't really have an angle. It just describes exactly the images that were there in front of us, and yeah, it took about 10 minutes to write as well.
In your eyes, anymore is sadness.
Blunt continued his passion for writing songs throughout his studies and time in the army.
I was offered a publishing deal aged 19, and then I had a production deal offered to me so while I was in the army sometime, and I've been into I've had various meetings with various people, and at the same time I just wasn't ready.
After his stint in uniform, Blunt's journey continued to follow an interesting path. His next stop was Buckingham Palace, guarding the Queen.
When I came back, they gave me this great job where I had to dress up in ridiculous uniforms and prance around London for tourists to take pictures, and they're great uniforms. I've still got some of them.
This was the start of Blunt's brush with fame.
She's a great person, really witty, very smiley, which you don't normally see on the television because she's normally doing official business, so you never see her in a kind of relaxed mode. And in fact, I saw her about a month ago as well at some do we were doing in Windsor. It's obviously my new job now, and she thought I looked particularly scruffy nowadays.
By this stage, Blunt may have thought he already had a lifetime of tales to tell, but his journey had just begun. In 2004, a debut album belonging to a voice of a fallen angel hit #1 around the world. This is James Blunt.
You're beautiful. You're beautiful. You're beautiful. It's true.
I mean, I didn't expect it at all. You kind of write songs privately, and I wanted to make an album for myself, really, so I could hear the songs the way they're in my head, and didn't really expect it to connect in the way that has. But it's great fun. It means I get sent to a place like Australia, so that'll do.
There's one woman Blunt and his fans have to thank for the release of his debut album, Back to Bedlam.
Linda Perry was in a band called Four Non-Blondes, and she wrote Beautiful by Christina Aguilera and produced it, and she wrote and produced the bulk of Pink's album, Misunderstood. She is my record label boss. I'm signed to Custard Records in the US. Amazing. She's really full of energy, and you know, really enthusiastic and strong-willed. She can just make things happen just by sheer enthusiasm for it. So to have her kind of belief behind me was everything one could ask for.
After stumbling across a live track that Blunt had performed, renowned producer Tom Rothrock immediately agreed to work with James on his debut album in September of 2003. Working with the likes of Beck and the late Elliott Smith in the past made this the ultimate partnership. Coming up, James Blunt talks about his time in the studio and making his first video.
Beautiful dawn.
In 2004, James Blunt's debut album Back to Bedlam was released, hitting the #1 spot not only in his home country, but right here in Oz. The first single lifted off it was High.
I'd rather wake up and see.
In the first video, Hi, I wrote that completely with the director. He suggested being buried in sand. It was not a painful experience of me buried for a day and a half. I'm really a sadomasochist. But then I wrote all of the other aspects to it, and we had no budget for it really. But 6 of us went out to another island, and we just find excuses to go to the Mediterranean.
Beautiful dawn.
Tenerife. 04.
I'm just chasing time again.
I have been involved in writing a script with Magic Mark, and he threw up a good pitch with me with my head in the sand, in a hole, in a desert. I'm installed a dwarf, Elvis Presley, and an old woman, all the makings of a great video.
What was the whole like?
The hole's like the ultimate German sauna, and had to pretend that you're enjoying yourself. There. Yes, he's a good little head.
By now I'm riding on all the stars above. Sometimes it's hard to believe you remember me. Beautiful dawn melts with the stars again. Do you remember the day when my journey began? Will you remember the end of time? Beautiful dawn. You're just blowing my mind again. My life is brilliant, my love is pure. I saw an angel, of that I'm sure. She smiled at me on the subway, she was with another man. But I won't lose no sleep on that, 'cause I've got a plan. You're beautiful, you're beautiful, you're beautiful, it's true. I saw your face in a crowded place, and I don't know what to do, 'cause I'll never be with you.
That was genuinely lovely. Thank you very much. It sounded fantastic.
Thank God we got through that one. The online interviews I've done, then yeah, you can see people who've researched it more. They've stalked, and they know. So yeah, then it becomes harder, I suppose, in the questioning, because they do go deeper, whereas most people ask the same questions all the time about musical influences, time in the army, and Christina Aguilera or Britney Spears. Hello, my name's James Blunt. Hi, it's James Blunt here. Hi there, it's James Blunt. Hey, Jonathan, it's James Blunt. Yeah, really well. How are you doing? I listened to a bit of Pink Floyd, bit of Led Zeppelin along the way, enjoyed some Pixies, and more recently Elliott Smith. And that's obviously how I then met up with Tom Rothrock, who produced the album. And I'd asked, having heard the Elliott Smith stuff, said I'd love to meet this producer. But I haven't really been overly influenced by that much music. And then that kind of benefits some of the songs that I'm doing, which are pretty kind of honest, open songs, and so perhaps that instant approach helps. I don't think I'll, change music as a whole, but what I would like to be able to do is just connect with people. Yeah, totally. Yeah, I'm not able to just, make them up. They're all about my own experiences.
It's not me, it's not me.
Up next, James Blunt reveals his feelings about his lost lovers.